There is a clear expectation at Tulane to compete at the top of the American, to be in the American championship game, and to compete for a college football playoff spot year in and year out. The Green Wave were able to accomplish that ultimate goal last year. In the midst of an 11-3 season, they went to the playoff, played Ole Miss and lost in a one-sided game. In fact, two of their three losses last year were to Ole Miss. So other than losing to UTSA on the road, where almost nobody wins, Tulane was a 10-1 team last season. This is a team that went 7-1 in the American, and now it feels like they're starting over. But those expectations are not going to change. I'm telling you, they're not different. And it's going to be interesting to see how this new coaching staff, with a new quarterback, with a new nucleus, can keep those expectations going at Tulane and what this 2026 season looks like. We're talking about the Green Wave today on the You Think You Know Sports podcast. I appreciate you joining me. You can find us on Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Spotify, YouTube. You can find us on our website, youthinkyouknowsports.com. Spelled the same way as the name of this podcast. And you can also join us on social media. This really started because of a TikTok page with over 10,000 followers, and we've branched out. I've done past work in the media, and this thing's really taken off. So, previewing every single team in college football right now, all 138, with a video on social media, podcasts like this one that you're listening to on Tulane, and a website write-up. So, come check it out if you want to see more about any team in the country. Tulane, obviously, John Summerall is no longer the head coach. He has moved on to Florida. Will Hall is the new head coach for the Green Wave. It's an interesting hire. Will Hall was 14-30 at Southern Mississippi from 2021 to 2024. And it's going to be interesting to see how he handles the situation at Tulane after things didn't go so well with the Eagles. He was the passing game coordinator under Summerall last year, so he is, it's not like he's learning the program. He's been there. But he does have a new-looking team. There are only 5 players back from last year's team, 5 starters. I should say 5 starters, not players. They've got to figure out who the quarterback's going to be. There's a battle between Chris Gramillion from Houston and Caden Simonza, who was the third-string quarterback last year at Tulane, but was previously at Ball State. And I've said this about a couple of quarterback battles now, but I really do like where they're at in this situation. Because Chris Gramillion was at Houston. He's a 64% collegiate passer, 17 touchdowns, 15 picks. But he has 205 rushes for 992 yards and 10 touchdowns. He had a long of 80 a few years ago in 2023 at Louisiana, where he started his career. And then he had a long of 71 in 2024. The dude can run, okay? So he adds another element to your offense. Simonza, 64% completion percentage. 2 years ago, 25 touchdowns and 10 picks at Ball State. So while he hasn't really played at Tulane, he showed that he can play at the Division I FBS level. And Gramillion also has some numbers at the Division I level. So you bring in 2 guys that maybe it hasn't necessarily worked where they were previously, but doesn't mean that they don't know how to play football. I love when you are a team in the American, just outside the Power 4, going and getting guys who have played at Power 4 schools, I think is huge. Now, obviously, Simonza was at Ball State, but he comes into Tulane and he's already spent a year. So he's got the experience with Tulane, while Chris Gramillion was at Houston playing in the Big 12. So I like this situation. I don't know who's going to win the job. You may see a little bit of both. Obviously, Jake Retzlaff kind of fell into Tulane's lap last year. Not that there weren't other teams going after him, but Tulane was in some quarterback issue area where they just didn't have a guy do some things off the field and other things that were going on. And then Retzlaff got into his own trouble at BYU. that we're not going to get into here. And ultimately, it worked out, right? I mean, you get a guy who was really good at BYU, but now you have a very different situation. So we'll see what happens there. The only two starters back on offense are Anthony Brown-Stevens, a wide receiver who had 41 catches last year, and Reese Baker, an offensive lineman. So the question is, Jamari McClure looks like he's going to be kind of the key guy in the backfield at running back. He averaged, listen, last 5 games of the year last year, the guy was unbelievable. Last 5 games, he averaged over 100 or nearly 100 yards per game rushing, 6.5 yards per carry, 75 carries in those last 5 games. Do that math quickly. That's 15 apiece, right, in each game. He had 121 versus North Texas, who played in the American Championship game against Tulane, and 84 against Ole Miss in the playoff. Now, they were getting blown out by Ole Miss pretty quickly. I'm not saying that some of those weren't garbage yards, but still, McClure is back and is going to be a key cog in this offense for Will McClure. But it's not just McClure, who I've kind of focused on in my video. McClure is backed up by Maurice Turner, who won the starting job in the preseason last year, then just dealt with injuries throughout the year. And then a guy from Florida State, Jalen Lucas, is going to come in. So there's talent there in the backfield for Tulane. And here's the thing. The defense is probably going to be better. I mean, 6 of the top 10 tacklers return on this team. Chris Rogers is back, 80 tackles. Kevin Adams, 53 tackles. The safety, who was the defensive MVP in the American Championship game, he's back as well. So Tulane has got talent on both sides of the ball, And when you return 6 of your top 10 tacklers from a college football playoff team, you should expect that defense to be really, really good again. And I believe it's fair to have those expectations if you're a fan of the Green Wave. 4 straight American Championship games, they're going to expect to be there again. I don't think there's any doubt about it, and I think they absolutely should expect to be there again. The schedule opens with a game of conference champions. They play at Duke on September 5th, so you get the American champion and the AAC or ACC champion. To begin the year, that was a hypothetical game that a lot of us played out last year for the final playoff spots. Obviously, James Madison ended up getting the last spot over the ACC champion Duke, who had 5 losses. But anyways, moving on, September 12th, they play South Alabama. Then at Kansas State on September 19th, they host Southern Miss September 26th, play at Army October the 10th. That's 2 weeks later with a bye week in between the Southern Miss games. So 3 of the first 5 are on the road. I don't love that. Nobody should love that. Home games against Memphis and UTSA follow that. They play at Charlotte October 30th, Tulsa November 7th, and then 2 of the last 3 are on the road. They play at Rice November 14th, North Texas on November 21st, and then at South Florida on November the 27th. So I think it could be a fun year for Tulane in this wide open American. I really don't know that there's a clear favorite in the American. I don't. I mean, I think Tulane, I think Army, I think South Florida is going to be in the mix. I don't want to leave anybody out. I think there are a lot of teams that if things go their way this year, they catch a break or two, could win the American. I absolutely believe that. And it's going to be a lot of fun to watch this conference this year to see how it unfolds. Guys, I appreciate you listening today as we talked about Tulane. The next one is going to be on Tulsa. Tulsa and then UAB. So hope that you guys will check those out as we continue our tour around college football, trying to get through all 138 schools here on the You Think You Know Sports podcast. Thanks for listening.